Welcome back. My name is John Clark. My 10th writing rule is avoid anger and overstatement. In writing, there is something called tone, and it's very important. I don't have much about tone in these short videos, but I do want to discuss just a little about tone here. Well, what is tone? Tone is the writer's emotional stance. It's generally okay to have an emotional stance. In fact, it often helps a piece of writing to have an emotional stance without letting the emotion dominate your argument. The trick is finding the proper tone. Well, that's not always easy. For a course I wrote, the students are assigned to answer a question about Judge Blackmun's decision in Roe versus Wade. We often receive Roe papers that are angry and emphatic, but contain very little research. I've received papers that are very similar to this. Quote, Judge Blackmun was a terribly biased judge, and abortion is terrible, and Roe was a terrible decision. Anyone who thinks this decision is good is terribly wrong, and just doesn't understand how terrible abortion is. I've received papers that contain 3 or 4 paragraphs in a row like this. But here's the problem. This sort of writing is repetitive rant, not research. This is a research paper, not a rant paper. Presently, the world is full of ranting. What the world is lacking is insight, logic, and reason. That's what teachers want your paper to include. There's a saying among writers, show, don't tell. How does this apply to the Roe paper? If you want to communicate that Blackmun was biased, show how he was biased. Show how he was wrong when he made statements about ancient religions having no problem with abortion. Instead of saying that abortion is terrible, show why. By the way, this does not mean that you cannot be emphatic in your writing. It simply means that emphatic language cannot replace logic in fact. Regarding overstatement, remember that one overstatement can ruin a paper. This sentence did not come from an actual paper, but it's presented here as an example. Quote, Roe versus Wade was the worst decision in all of history, far surpassing the fall of Lucifer. If someone reads that, he or she might simply dismiss your paper entirely, even if it contains lots of other great arguments and insights. One overstatement can sink the paper. Remember, good tone is born of logic and reason. Write accordingly. See you in lesson 11.